What we're going to see in the next few moments from Scripture is that David and his men engaged in a battle against the Amalekites. But the Scripture not only talks about physical battles that take place at times, there's an overarching emphasis on spiritual battles. And in case you have not yet recognized, we, that includes you, we're living in a war zone, a spiritual war. Paul told the church in Ephesus in Ephesians 6 verse 10, he said, put on the whole armor of God, that you may take your stand when the day of evil comes. Not if it comes, but when it comes. In fact, when Paul was encouraging his son Timothy, his spiritual son Timothy, he said to Timothy in 1 Timothy 6 verse 20, Timothy, guard what has been entrusted to your care. So he's using militaristic words. Guard what has been entrusted to your care. Imagine then you have a house, a home in which you live. You've bought all these things. You've bought jewelry, you have television, you have other technology, you have furniture, and more importantly, you have a family that lives in that home. And if someone comes to break into that home, I don't care if you're lame, if you're crippled, if you have only one eye, you can't even hear, but I guarantee you, when that person invades your home, you're going to do everything in your power to stop that person from rummaging and stealing or kidnapping your family. Why? Because this is your property, and you deeply care. But in the same way, we're in a spiritual war, and we have to recognize the reality of this. And I want us to see that one of the things that we must do to be effective in becoming a kneeling warrior, I use the word kneeling because it gives you a posture of praying, and prayer is one of the greatest weapons that God's given us. In fact, in Ezekiel 22, verse 30 and 31, the prophet prophesies or speaks on God's behalf. Here's what the prophet says. I looked for a man among them who would build up the wall and stand before me in the gap on behalf of the land, so I would not have to destroy it, but I found none. What God is saying is this: I looked for an intercessor, I looked for a kneeling warrior, someone that understood how to move me in prayer. Because the land was living, or the people of the land was living, such broken, disheveled lives without boundaries of Scripture and an immoral compass, that my wrath has to be poured out. But what I wanted was my wrath to be stayed, or my anger to be averted. I needed someone who would pray for the people. And God said, I looked for someone, and I found none. I ask you a question before I even delve into the subject. Are you a man or a woman of prayer? And if you're not, I tell you now without any constraint, I feel sorry for your family. I feel sorry for your job. And I feel sorry for your soul if you're not a man or woman of prayer. Prayer is one of God's most powerful weapons that He's given us. And this generation needs praying people so that we can be able to see God's plan comes to pass. It was not my intention or my wit. I wish I was smart enough to have thought of it, but I didn't. I just read the Scripture. God instituted prayer. He responds to prayer. He is moved by prayer. And without prayer, we hold God at bay. We keep God at a distance. We keep God not in the game. Prayer releases God to get involved. Prayerlessness silences God.